All right. So this is a little bit of a new adventure for me. I've done lives on Instagram. I have not done lives on LinkedIn. So here we are. These are going to be short. Today, I'm going to share an intro with you to improving performance without overtaxing any one of your employees. And before I do that, I'm actually going to, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share kind of three critical steps to accountability. We're going to start there with accountability because I know so many people try to start with accountability and they miss a few key elements before they can put accountability in place. But before I do that, let me introduce myself. Dottie Posto, you can see that from my name in plain sight. My company works with CEOs and senior leadership, and we work with companies ranging from right around 50 million up to 500 million. And we help them maximize team and leadership performance. And we do that to really maximize their bottom line, to get a return on investment, and to become the best place, be the place where everyone wants to work. And I do this by coaching both individual leaders as well as creating a customized leadership and team development package for you based on the challenges that your team is facing. And then we create workshops and interviews and different stair-step approach to ensure that whatever changes we're talking about and implementing and creating are actually built into your culture over time, and they are integrated into your culture so that they can be sustained for the long term. Now, my plan is to go live each week and share with you some of the how-tos, some inspiration, some transformation, all in about 10 to 20 minutes, which, by the way, could be a bit of a challenge for me because I tend to be very verbose. So we'll see where this goes. We'll see how it goes. My goal is to really be able to keep these brief and actionable for the most part. Many of them will be actionable. Some of them will be a little bit more inspirational, to really help you affect real change in your organization. And so what I want to share first are the first thing we're going to talk to are basics, just very basics. I'll probably dive into each one of these topics in detail over the course of the next month or so. But I want to talk about three areas that you have to really focus on with your teams in order to actually have accountability work. Okay. The first one is to build authentic trust. Now, trust, this comes from my coach, Roberta Colasante. And I think it's actually from a couple different books that she's worked with. The Little Book of Trust. There's another trust book, and then You Are What You Say. But trust is an assessment of another person's sincerity, ability, are they competent in the area in question, and the responsibility, are they reliable to keep the promises and their promises and commitments. Now, without trust, relationships and organizations are in a constant state of vigilance and chaos. Now, you may not notice this. You might notice the chaos, but you don't always notice the vigilance. But that it's, and some people who are a little bit more in tune with their team may notice the people who are a bit on guard, people who don't contribute as much. And so at the end, I'm going to go back over each one of these and give you a little bit of a tip for each one. The second element, so the first thing, you have to build authentic trust. You can't have cordial hypocrisy. You can't have blind trust. You really have to build authentic trust. And we'll go more into detail about the differences of those in some of the future lives that I do. And maybe we'll even bring on Roberta one of these times and she can talk to it in a little bit more detail, and we'll share her matrix of trust and, oh, now it went through my head. I missed it. Anyway, we'll share some of her insights and her very deep knowledge on trust. So the second element that you must have in order to really leverage and lean into accountability with your team is constructive conflict. You might think that that is, that conflict, you don't want conflict on your team. Wrong, totally wrong. In order for you to make sure that all of the ideas get out and that you can get to the next level, which is commitment, which we'll get to in a minute, that everybody is heard, that all voices are heard. If people aren't heard, they will either talk outside the room about how they're not going to participate in a particular activity, or they're not going to support it, or they think it's a dumb idea. You have to have productive, constructive, generative conflict, not artificial harmony. You want to make sure that you have passionate, unfiltered debate. And that unfiltered debate means people aren't getting personal. Okay. So that's the difference between the destructive and productive conflict. You want people to be able to have the psychological safety. And I know there's a lot of talk about that, but we'll go into that a little bit more detail in some future lives that I do. But you want to be able to mine for conflict. You want to make sure that people are comfortable being able to speak up, psychological safety, without fear of ridicule, without fear of being shamed, without fear of any kind of retribution. This trust, the authentic trust, and the constructive conflict ensures that all ideas are heard, that you have the best solution that's being taken forward. That way, you get to commitment. You can actually establish commitment to a particular solution, to a particular project, to a particular, path forward, even though you might not have consensus. Everybody does not have to agree. They can agree to disagree. And so you want to make sure you are getting clarity and alignment on all of the decisions. Okay, so those are the three. You need to have authentic trust, you need to foster constructive conflict, and you need to have commitment. So let's go back over those one more time, and I'm going to give you one thing you can do in each of these areas that can help build those areas. So how can you build authentic trust? One way is to really get to know each other better and to really, understand and know who people are on a personal level. So one simple way is to just take the first, couple of minutes of a meeting and really just ask how people are, and really ask, instead of, don't just take fine, say, no, how are you really? What's something, or we sometimes would start with a question, what's something wonderful and what's something challenging happening in your day today? Ask some questions that get below the surface of the work that you're doing. Get outside of the work and really understand the person. So that's one way you can build trust. I have an activity that I do that we'll talk about in another video, but if you'd like, this one activity that I take people through, it's kind of a day-long, half day. I can do it in a half day, but we've done day-long sessions, but a half-day activity that I can take people through that really, really helps to create trust, especially with new teams and even with new project teams, things like that. How can you foster constructive conflict? Part of it is helping people understand the difference between destructive and constructive conflict. And so maybe one activity you could do with your group is to just really talk about the differences between the two. If you have questions, I can send some information out on that. Just email me or DM me. But you want to actually make sure that you are ensuring that every single voice is heard. And if there is any ridicule or shame, that you nip that in the bud, that you're not allowing that to happen, and that you kind of create those rules. That's one way. That's another activity that you can do around fostering constructive conflict, or kind of set up some rules of engagement of what does good conflict look like, what does destructive conflict look like. And then getting into commitment, one way that you can ensure you're getting commitment is to eliminate assumptions. So, and one thing is just to ask, are there any assumptions? Who's got an assumption about how we're going forward with this particular project? Who's got, make sure that you have a very clear path forward. Sometimes it means detailing out every single one of the activities with the name of who is going to do it and with the date of when it's going to be done. It sounds like a simple thing, but you'd be amazed at how many teams don't do these things. To really have a very detailed who's doing what, when will you have it done? That way you can actually come back and ask and do the accountability and have the accountability with your folks to say, okay, these were the commitments. Is this done? Is this done? Is this done? And then have the conversation after that of, if it wasn't, why. And that's where a whole nother level of leadership conversation comes in that you can have. So 3 things that you have to have before you can have accountability on your team. The first is to build authentic trust. The second is to mine for and foster constructive conflict. And the other one is to ensure commitment. So do all of your employees have authentic trust for each other? Good question to ask yourself. Another question is your team willing to engage in passionate debate? And then the last thing is, do you get honest, clear commitment? Do they agree? Or if they disagree, are they willing to still commit and move forward? And so Dottie Postel signing off. Like I said, these would be short. This one under 15 minutes, really in service of you ensuring that you have the most productive team and that you're the place where everyone wants to work. Look forward to talking to y'all next week. My goal is to do these every week on Tuesdays at noon. And so hopefully, we'll kind of get in a rhythm with these, and maybe your lunch hour can be checking out the live broadcast. So have a great rest of your week.